Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria. If you are new, today I am going to be talking about the 4 new mini decades palettes from Urban Decay, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s palettes. I decided to split it up into 2 videos because I feel like it would just be a lot to do it all in one and not really necessary to do 4 separate videos. So I'm going to be doing the 70s and 80s palettes today, reviewing them and doing a look with each of them. And my next video will be the 90s and 2000s palettes. As you can probably guess, I am starting off with the 70s palette. So if you want to go ahead and jump straight into the swatches and looks, feel free to do so. I just wanted to do a little life check-in because it has been almost 2 weeks since I have uploaded a video. Thank you guys for being so patient with me. And thank you guys so much for 1,500 subscribers. I just reached that a few days ago and I am so excited. Thank you so much. This has been a very rough past week. I unfortunately got the news that I lost my grandmother, my nana, so that was really hard, and it just has not been easy, especially being so far away from my family, and of course not really being able to travel right now with everything going on. And it's just kind of hard, you know, because you try to distract yourself. There's just like this present sadness, and that's just kind of what I've been trying to overcome this past week or so. And yeah, so thank you guys for being patient with me, but I am back and I am really looking forward to doing these looks for you. I even tried to put together some fun outfits to go along with the looks, the decades looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the swatches now, and then we'll get on to the looks. So I'm going to prime my lid with the Pero Primero primer from Elmar Cosmetics. Okay, so starting with the 70s Boogie palette, first let me just address the elephant in the room. And it's actually kind of funny that I say elephant because I'm talking about size. And it's the opposite of an elephant. It's very small. These palettes are really tiny. They're about the size of a cassette tape, which is funny because the 80s, of course, is a cassette tape. Based off the pictures, I was not expecting them to be this small, especially because they're $25 each. That just seemed kind of crazy to me now that like I have it in my hand. I'm like, this is $25. So I really like the color story of the 70s. It really feels 70s to me. So I'm going to start off with the shade I Like It, which is this mid-tone brown here. That's the way, I like it, I guess it's a reference to that song. It has to be, right? Yep, 1975. So I'm guessing that is a reference to that song. I'm kind of starting to just build it on my outer corner and working it up into the crease. I'm going to take it a little bit higher than the crease towards my brow bone. So when I was looking for inspiration for 1970s makeup, it was really, like I was looking on Pinterest and it was really hard to find because the 60s style makeup is really popular right now. So I was just getting a lot of 60s makeup, but I did find this really cool little chart that kind of drew out the trends of all the decades. So this is the 70s here. They got a lot of bronzer, a lot of high cheek bronzer, and the eyeshadows really go like onto the brow bone. So that's kind of what I'm going to do. So I'm taking it pretty high up, blending it pretty high. So it's really going up like that rather than like this. Okay, so now I'm going to use this beautiful brown chocolate shimmer. This is like so pretty. This is the shade Outlandish, and I'm going to kind of take it to where I took the first shade, but not going so far up. Got a little bit of fallout, nothing crazy. Taking it into the crease and outer corner and just kind of blending that up. Okay, so I know it's looking a little crazy right now, but we're just gonna keep going with it. So now I'm going to take Turn the Beat, which is that beautiful teal shimmer. And I'm going to take that as kind of like the main shadow across my lid. And this one like looks like it's gonna be really dry. So we'll kind of see how it picks up on my brush. So I thought I was gonna have to take this on my finger, but it's actually applying really nicely with a brush. And just kind of blending that out when I get towards the outer corner. I'm gonna take a little bit more of that Outlandish. Okay, so now I'm going to use these two shimmers, Club Hop and Disco Diva, for the top of my brow bone and my inner corner. I'm going to take Club Hop, which is kind of like a more like rosy shimmer in my inner corner, and this one was like more beige white shimmer, Disco Diva, on my brow bone. So I'm gonna start with Club Hop. And then Disco Diva on my brow bone. That's like almost it. It was pretty simple, pretty easy eye look. I'm going to do the other side and then we'll do the lower lash line and lashes. So I've already done my face and like my concealer slash contour, but I did want to jump in before I move on because I want to show you guys the bronzer that I'm going to be doing. As I mentioned in that little chart that I found, the bronzer is very prominent, very kind of high up. So I'm going to be using the Matte Radiance Baked Powder in Bronze 04 from Mercier. I'm just taking that on top of that contour, going a little bit higher up, kind of even onto my cheek. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to blush, and I just got this blush during like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It is from Nabla, I'm not sure how to say that brand name. It is their Skin Glazing Glass Skin Finish Glow Powder, and this is the shade Adult Only. So it's kind of like a blush highlight, like a shimmery blush. And I'm just gonna take this very lightly where I kind of put that bronzer. Not going all the way down, just keeping it at the very top of my cheekbones and cheek. And honestly, I'm loving this blush. I think it's my new favorite. Okay, so now for highlight, I am going to use the Super Shock Cheek Highlighter in Parasol from ColourPop. Okay, now I'm going to move on to my lower lash line. Okay, so for my lower lash line, I think I'm going to keep it pretty simple and mostly just use the shade Outlandish, again, which is like that dark brown shimmer, and I'm gonna bring that down from the outer corner. And I'm taking it pretty much all the way underneath, but not going all the way in, stopping about right here. But I do think I'll bring down that Club Hop eyeshadow from my inner corner just a little bit, pretty much meeting that outlandish. And I am gonna use a liquid liner kind of just to act as a base for my lashes. And I just got this one from CoverGirl. It is a matte liquid liner, and honestly, I've been loving it. I'm not crazy about the applicator. It is like a sponge tip. I prefer like the ones with like little bristles. It's really matte and it stays on for a long time, and it's like $5, which is awesome. But I'm finding that this is a really good base for lashes to stick to, and it really conceals the lashes because it's just so matte and so dark. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to the lips. I think I want to do a brown lip. I'm gonna be using two things. First, I'm going to use the Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid lipstick in Maude. And then I'm going to top it off with this KKW lip gloss. And this is the shade Main Bae. And this one's kind of like a brown metallic. And that is pretty much it for the 70s look. The only eyeshadow that I didn't use was the pressed glitter. I was going to just top it all over my lid. I can just tell by the swatch that I'm not going to be a very big fan of this particular pressed glitter. I feel like I would have to really play around with it a lot to kind of get a look that I would want using this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and skip it for today. But yeah, this is the finished 70s look. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the 80s palette. So time for a costume, hair, and background change, and I will be right back. Okay, so we're moving on to the 80s. I got my jean jacket, my colorful sweater underneath. There were so many different styles in the 80s. I wasn't sure what kind of what to go with. I was thinking maybe something more Madonna, just based off of Pop Queen, you know, the name of the palette. I did find this super cute cardigan and I bought it, and I was kind of maybe gonna go for a more Molly Ringwald's, Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink type of style. But in the end, I decided to do something a little bit more casual, and I feel like it'll kind of go a little bit better with the colors in this palette. I am excited for this one. The 80s are my favorite decade, mostly because of the music. Most of the music that I listen to is either from the 80s or heavily inspired by 80s music. And I absolutely loved the fashion. But the hair and makeup, not so much. All of that teasing and hairspray could not have been good for your hair or the environment. And the makeup is definitely something. I think that's kind of where the whole rule of don't wear blue eyeshadow with red lipstick comes from. It's because of the 80s. Okay, so this look is gonna be kind of crazy. A lot of the 80s makeup just goes completely all over the eye, even goes really high up almost onto the brow and onto the bridge of the nose, and a lot of color going on underneath the eye as well. So we're just gonna kind of have fun with it. So I'm going to take the purple in this palette first, which is the shade Like a V. Definitely a Madonna reference. And I'm gonna take that on the far upper outer corner. And I did already prime my eyes with the Better Metal Primer. I'm gonna start to kind of create a wing very far up here. I'm not gonna take it all the way to the bottom of my outer corner. I'm gonna keep it pretty high up, in the crease and brow bone. I am winging it out towards the end of my brows. And so far this has got really good pigment. I have not had to grab much to get this much color. Now for the inner portion, going towards the bridge of my nose, I'm going to use the shade Scrunchy, which is like this pink matte. I'm gonna kind of start to blend it here and up so that it does touch my brows. I'm blending it into that purple. Looking at this one, I was afraid it was going to be like too light to really show up on my skin tone, but it's showing up pretty well. I'm taking it on the side of my bridge of my nose. I'm gonna take a little bit more of it like a V and kind of take it a little bit higher up here so that it actually starts to touch my brows. I'm gonna take some of that scrunchy, kind of start to fill in the empty space up here very lightly. Definitely very much out of my comfort zone. I'm kind of a little nervous. Okay, so now I'm gonna take some of that blue, which is the shade Superstar, and I'm going to take that on my lid. And this does have some sparkle to it, but it does seem very matte also. I feel like the primer underneath is really intensifying this eyeshadow. Just kind of blending that in the crease. This is a very intense blue. And I'm gonna take this all the way to the outer corner as well. Kind of slightly start to wing it out to meet that purple. This is fun. I wouldn't normally ever do something like this, so this is a fun little opportunity to do something like this. So now we're gonna take some of this yellow gold called Club Scene. This one is also like a shimmer. I'm gonna take this yellow gold in the inner corner of my eye. And I am taking this on pretty far onto the bridge of my nose. I'm not going to blend it too much in with this blue because I don't really want to create a green color. I do want the blue and yellow separate. Okay, before I move on to the lower lash line, I'm going to do the rest of my face really quick and the other eye. Okay, so I finished my foundation, my contour and bronzer like I normally would. Before I move on to finishing the eyes, the blush was a very big part of the 80s. So I'm going to use the same blush that I used for the 70s, which is the adults only from Nabla. I hope I'm probably not saying that right. It's the Skin Glazing Glass Skin Finish Glow Powder. Now the blush went like all around here, so that's what I'm gonna kind of do. It's not gonna be like super intense. I have like kind of like a small forehead and a small area right here, so I don't want to go too heavy. So I'm just gonna start sweeping that on. And start to bring it up as best I can. And onto the apples of my cheeks. And I also want to mention that some of the music that I am playing during this look is actually my dad's band when he was younger, called Blackwood Avenue. And honestly, they're so good. I love it. I think it's so cool that my dad was in a band. So, and I'm gonna link those below so you could check those out if you want. I think it was from the 80s. I hope I'm not wrong with that. Probably like late 80s, early 90s. I have to double check with my dad. For highlight, I'm going to use like this pink one from Anastasia Beverly Hills Nicole Guerrero palette. I'm just going very lightly with this, just at the tops of my cheekbones. Okay, now I'm gonna move on to finishing my eyes. I think I'm going to use the blue and this sparkly shimmer purple. One that I haven't used is Dance It Out. So I'm gonna start with Superstar, which is that blue. And I'm gonna take it directly underneath And it is going on a little bit lighter since I've set underneath my eyes, so it's like powder on powder. And I am going to bring in that yellow in a moment. And I am leaving a little bit of a space because I'm going to take that Dance It Out shimmer. Right. Connecting the blue on my lower lash line and winging it underneath the blue on my outer corner. It's very reflective. You can't really, it's kind of hard to see on camera. It's a very pretty sparkly purple though. And directly underneath that lighter purple, I'm going to take like a V, which is that more fuchsia purple, and I'm gonna go underneath that. Okay, now going back to that yellow gold club scene, I'm going to connect it to my lower lash line. Again, not really blending it into that blue on that lower lash line. I am going to take a tiny bit of black eyeliner on my waterline before I do my lashes. And I'm going to take a little bit on my upper lash line as well, kind of just as a base for my lashes. Again, using that CoverGirl liquid liner. Okay, now I'm going to move on to lashes. Now the lashes that I'm going to use are not very long. They're very like natural looking, which I think is more fitting for this makeup look. I wonder. Hey Siri, when were false lashes invented?
Here's what I found from Wikipedia.org in 1911. A Canadian woman named Anna Taylor patented false eyelashes.
1911. That's when fake eyelashes were invented. Well, that's interesting. So as you could see, they're not very dramatic, which is okay. It's kind of what I want right now. Okay, now just for the lips, and I think I want to do something very like fuchsia-y. So I think I'm gonna use the Powder Puff Lippie. It's a powder lip cream from NYX, and this is the shade Pop Quiz to go with our Pop Queen. And I'm pretty much done. And this is the finished look using the Pop Queen palette. Now I didn't use, so I used all the colors in this palette except for Heart, which is like this pale like peach matte. I just feel like it was just gonna disappear on my skin tone. Couldn't really find a place for it. I probably would have used it on my brow bone if I wasn't going for a very true 80s look. But just based off of how it swatches, it's like kind of just disappears, so. Okay, so let's talk about both the 80s palette and the 70s palette. Performance-wise, I don't really have any complaints with either of them. I was actually really impressed with the 80s palette. I feel like everything just blended beautifully, had great pigment, except for, of course, that one like really pale shade, pale peach matte. I don't feel like that's a color that would be suited for all skin tones. But other than that, I really loved the formulas in the 80s palette. The same goes for the 70s palette. I was really impressed with how they all performed. I think the only issue I had was really with the pressed glitter. I'm not a fan of this formula of this pressed glitter. It didn't really pick up well on a brush, and it was hard to transfer off of my finger after using it. So I don't know, not my favorite in the palette, but I really do love the rest of them. Again, going back to the size and price, I think that is going to play the biggest role on whether or not I recommend these. Again, these are so tiny. They're really, really small. And for $25, I'm not sure if they're 100% worth it. I do think they are more of collector's palettes rather than you should buy if you just want to use something every day. I do love the idea of these palettes though. I think I really do think they're fun. I love playing around with Decades looks. It's one of my favorite things to like do as far as finding outfits and doing like hair and makeup. I just think it's so fun. So it's just something that I personally really love to do. So for me, these would be like a perfect gift for me. I have read some comments on some Instagram posts saying that people are predicting that these will end up in like TJ Maxx or Nordstrom, I think, like Nordstrom Rack. I'm not 100% sure. I can definitely see why they would think that. I haven't seen a whole lot of promotion for these by Urban Decay. So if you are on the fence, maybe it might be worth holding out on them to see if they do become a little bit cheaper at those stores. I still am going to review and do looks with the 90s and 2000s palettes, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started on those and get this video out, so keep an eye out for that one. It should be up within a few days after this video. But for these two, I would give them, I would probably say 7.5 out of 10, because I really did love the quality of most of the eyeshadows in these. But yeah, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for being patient with me and understanding. I hope you all are healthy and well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.